Welcome to My Morning Cup, a podcast produced by Costa Media Advisors and presented by Rockpoint Bank and EPB. Rockpoint Bank, from Chattanooga for Chattanooga. And EPB, get EPB's fiber optics for the world's fastest community-wide internet. I'm Mike Costa, your host. My guest this week is Coty Wamp. General Wamp is the District Attorney General for the 11th Judicial District, which includes Hamilton County. General Wamp was sworn in on September 1st, 2022, and is the first woman to hold that position. General Wamp, before we find out what it's like to argue a case from the public defender's perspective and then from the prosecutor's perspective, let me ask, what's in your morning cup?
Love this. Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here. My actual morning cup.
Yep.
Right? This is how we start this podcast. I've heard. My dad was telling me this.
Yeah.
So my coffee needs to be khaki colored. So I've got enough sweet creamer, and I'm just like my dad. Enough sweet creamer where it's like a very light brown, a khaki color. I wish I could do black coffee, but I am a light brown coffee, sweet, oat milk, brown sugar type of girl. But I do have a coffee every single morning.
Are you a pumpkin spice in the fall?
I'm not a pumpkin spice girl. I don't know about pumpkin spice.
No?
Not really an $8 coffee girl. My husband and I make a pot every morning, and the pot comes in the car with me. So,
you know, and for someone my age, that's the most incredible thing is what we pay for a cup of coffee
expensive.
anymore. You used to go into a diner and get a coffee for $1.50 and they'd refill it all day.
It really is unacceptable. I mean, I will go to Starbucks. It's $8. I'm like, why are we doing this? This is really not a good look for this country to be $8 coffee country. But no, we've got the pot. We don't even do the K-cups. We just do the full pot.
I'm a black decaf guy. So
decaf? That's not coffee.
It is for me
doesn't
anymore.
Count. It doesn't count, Mike.
I switched over, 8 years ago.
Okay.
And the aromas and everything else associated with it still do the same
I agree.
thing for me.
When I was pregnant, I had to do the decaf. And it was a struggle, but I still wanted that morning coffee, so I did the decaf. So I get it.
But you know, even when I go to Starbucks and get a black decaf, it's $4.50, and I'm looking.
It's wild. Yeah.
This
adds up.
Yeah. Well, thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
You're a bit, and I don't want to overuse the term trailblazer, but you know what? You're young, and for the first female as the district attorney in Hamilton County, so you've really gotten off to a fast start.
Thank you.
And I want to talk about your career and your life journey. So I always start, as I say at the beginning, born and raised Hamilton County?
Yeah, born and raised. A lot of people, when we say that, think that that's strange for my brother and I because my dad was in Congress for a good chunk of my childhood into adolescence. And so they think we spent a lot of time in D.C. A lot of people even thought we lived in D.C., and that is not correct. I was born and raised here. My dad was elected to office when I was 5 years old. So he did start spending, a lot of most weeks in D.C. But no, we stayed here. My brother and I were public school kids, Big Ridge Elementary School kids, which is still one of the best elementary schools in the county. And then later went to Chattanooga Christian School, but we'd spend a lot of time in D.C. in the summer times. We'd go up every now and then, but for the most part, we were very much local and
very Chattanooga kids.
That's right. And my dad
and remind everyone who your dad is.
Sorry, my dad is Zach Wamp. He's a former congressman. So my brother and I are both in public service, I think, because of him. My brother's Weston Wamp. He's the current county mayor. But yeah, so our dad just is such a big part of why we are where we are. And it's not because people like to say, we rode the coattails. To a certain extent, we don't shy away from the fact that there were coattails to definitely jump on. And if you have a father or you come from a family where one of your parents has done something great, you would be silly to not hop on a coattail and at least see where it can take you. Now, that doesn't mean that that's all you should be doing. You should do your own thing, and you should be strong and independent in your own ways. But if you've got a coattail, be strong and independent, but don't miss out on the coattail.
Well, I think that's an important point because you're not doing things for yourself. But if it's opening a door for you,
sure,
go through the door.
Sure. And what kind of if children are not doing that with their parents that are successful or that have gone and started their own business or have gone to Congress, then that's their problem. Because really, yeah, exactly. You're right. It opens a door. We walked right through those doors. But it certainly is why my brother and I both were interested in public service.
Well, and talk a little bit about growing up as the child of a congressman. Your dad's basically gone Monday through Friday, coming home on weekends.
Yes.
You didn't relocate to D.C., but there's an added focus or an added pressure probably on you. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it was an interesting way to grow up because he was elected when I was 5 years old, and he didn't leave office until I was in college. So 16 years, the biggest chunk of my childhood.
That's pretty
all
much
the
all
way
you
through
knew.
college. That's right. So that's all we knew. My dad was very good about being home as much as he could. So there were other members of the House and the Senate that would go up for weeks at a time, come home when they could, especially if they lived further away. You know, if you're from Seattle, you might be gone. My dad would go up on a Monday, come back on Thursday or Tuesday to Friday. But often, if we had a basketball game on a Tuesday night, he would fly home just for the basketball game, and then he would go straight back to D.C. There was never an event that he missed. There was never a time my brother and I would ever look back and say, gosh, Dad wasn't there for that. I don't remember one time where my dad wasn't there for something that I needed him there for. So he was gone, and looking back, I'm like, that's crazy. He was gone so much because we just don't feel like that. But it was unique, and you had to, as soon as I sort of got to the age where my behavior could come back to haunt me, we had to definitely watch ourselves more. It was always in the back of my mind that I needed to act right. Especially in college, you know, because at that point, he also ran for governor when I was in college, which made college very interesting. But yeah, we were always sort of having, and I think my brother and I did a good job of that. We had our run-ins here and there, you know, growing up. But,
as we all do.
We all do. But no, across, as a whole, it was a great way to grow up with a dad that was in D.C. and doing really cool things. He was different than a lot of politicians these days, and he really looked at it as a public service. And he looked at it as what our representatives are losing, I guess this is the best way to say it, is that they're supposed to represent the people that elected them. And now I feel like so many politicians, especially in D.C., sort of forget that they are supposed to be representatives of the people they represent, that elected them. And my dad was very good about being home and being in the 3rd Congressional District and showing up at the pancake breakfasts and showing up for, you know, the Lincoln Day dinner in Campbell County. And he was around, and that's why people loved him so much here. And people still, every week, I love your dad. Your dad did this for me. Your dad did this for me. And it's because he was really, really good at his job.
Yeah, and he's on that airplane quite a bit, and you've got him in it. That had to not necessarily put extra pressure on your mom, but your mom probably gets a lot of credit for keeping you guys stable, huh?
100%. My mom is the glue of the Wamp family. She's also the biggest firecracker of the Wamp family. People don't know this because she looks so sweet and she's so elegant and she's such a servant and everybody loves her, but you don't want to cross Kim Wamp. But she has now, you know, been with my dad for all those years he ran for office. And now Weston ran for Congress twice and then ran for county mayor. And then, of course, I ran for office. And honestly, I don't know how she's really kept it together during all of those campaigns. Very stressful. I know it was more stressful for her and my dad to have my brother and I run for office than it ever was for my dad to run for office.
Did you and Weston have a natural rivalry growing up?
Well, Weston and I, our journey to running for elected office in the same term was interesting. He has always been my very best friend. It was just the two of us. We're pretty close in age. We're just a couple years apart. So we were always very close growing up. And always, I wouldn't say we were rivals. I would just say that we both were committed to doing well at whatever it was we were doing, whether it was school or sports. We were at the University of Tennessee together for 2 years. And spent a lot of time up there, just the two of us. So we had a healthy competition in that we both wanted to excel, but always were rooting for each other. I'm his biggest fan. He's my biggest fan. We never knew that we would be running for office at the same time on the same ballot together. So when that happened, dynamics got really interesting for the Wamp family because we had two very different campaigns going on. Different in terms of what we were running for, but also just the makeup of the election and whose opponent was who, and very, very, very stressful time for my family to keep all of that separate.
I want to go back a little bit and talk a little bit about growing up and your dad being in D.C. What was a typical week like for you in terms of outdoor activities, sports. You mentioned Big Ridge School. Where'd you go to high school?
Yeah, so we were, Wes and I were both very active. So I went to Chattanooga Christian when I was in 4th grade and graduated from CCS. So did my brother. We are CCS fans. I always will be. I wish I could go back more often and speak at chapels and graduations. My sister-in-law is also a CCS kid, so we're just a big CCS family. But yeah, looking back, it was my mom and my brother and I a lot at home by ourselves. Again, I don't look at it like that because I don't remember a time ever like missing my dad when I needed him to be there. But we were sort of a little threesome, and Weston was a good little high school basketball player, and I tried my best to keep up in terms of cheerleading. And we were both very smart. Weston is naturally smart. I have to try hard to be smart. Which is always very frustrating for me because he doesn't have to study a book to do well on a test. He just does well on the test, and I have to study for 2 days, and then I might do decent on the test. So he's the smart.
Doesn't that drive
he's
you
the
crazy?
smarter one. Yeah, some people are just wired like that.
Yeah.
We actually took a class together in college to see who would do better in it. It was a political science class, and he didn't even study. He got an A-, and I think I got a B+. So he actually in the one class we took together, he did better than me. But no, so I'm a Chattanooga Christian grad. I decided when I was a junior at CCS that I was going to go to law school. I had a teacher named Bryant Black, who I still speak to this day, who taught a civil rights class. And in civil rights, I think he and I both realized together that probably being some type of advocate for vulnerable communities, for the underdog, for people that needed a voice was where I really needed to go. And that shows you how important our high school teachers are, right? I mean, I had a high school teacher that probably is the only reason I went to law school.
Well, talk about that a little bit. What was it that he did that really hooked you and said, this is something I want to pursue? Yeah,
I had multiple courses with him. He was a history, sort of political science, almost teacher at CCS. And I got to know him really well, took all the classes I could with him, but CCS was still a small school back then. And he and I just we appreciated each other. And I think he was a teacher that early on saw something in me that could go and do, whatever I wanted to do if I believed in myself. And so he cultivated that with me. He really did. And I will be forever grateful. And I don't think I'm the only student. I'm not the only student. I know that. I think he was just able to identify the students that wanted to excel and wanted to be successful. And he helped us on that journey. But he was not just a teacher. He very much was a mentor, someone in my life that encouraged me and pushed me and I think we need that. I have parents that always encouraged me to do whatever I wanted to go do and were always there for me. But anytime you can have people outside of your immediate family that are willing to do that, it makes us all better, right? I hope I can be that person for younger people at some point in life. But he was my mentor and sort of walked me through high school to make sure I was set up to go do whatever. And I decided that junior year in a civil rights class, learning about the civil rights era in this country, that I was going to go to law school and that I was going to advocate for people that needed a voice. And that's exactly what I did.
What was it about that vulnerability of different populations that really captured you, that said, this is what I want to do?
It's the underdog. I would say the underdog is my passion. That's the way that I say it. That's the way I think of it. The people that really, the voiceless sometimes that need a voice. And it's weird that I've now switched to being a prosecutor because I began my career, which we can go back to, as a public defender, where I was the voice of the defenseless, you can say. But that's where my heart lies. My heart really lies in public service. And a lot of times public service, it should be. Yeah. If we're treating it the way it is, it should be representing the voiceless, whether it's the voiceless in the community that can't afford food, in Alden Park, or it's the voiceless, the criminal defendants that have had constitutional rights violated, whatever it is. Public service should really be focused on those individuals.
Yeah. Back to high school a little bit. What were some of your extracurriculars, and were you working any high school jobs? What were those experiences?
Oh, goodness. That's funny. Well, first of all, I went to Baylor for 1 year. Weston and I are like the CCS poster kids because he went to McCall. He left CCS, went to Macaulay for a little while, and then came back to CCS. I left CCS, went to Baylor for a year, and then came back to CCS. And that's not to say anything bad about Baylor. Baylor is a great school, but it was not my cup of tea. I told my mom the first day of school that I was going to go back to CCS. I cried in the car. I ate lunch in the bathroom at Baylor my first day of school.
What grade was this?
10th grade.
Oh, man.
So everybody had their friend group. Yeah, everybody had their friend group established. I had a peanut butter and jelly sandwich in the bathroom stall at Baylor. I'll never forget it. But anyways, so I was a cheerleader at CCS, but at Baylor, you have to always have like the extracurricular activity. So I actually was on the diving team at one point. That was interesting.
Were you a natural diver, or was that?
Absolutely not. I was horrible. I didn't even want to do a flip. I could do a standard dive and maybe a back dive. That was about it. And then I was on the crew team, which I really loved. And, it's only our big schools that have a crew team. CCS would not have a crew team. But I rowed, and I loved it. It was awesome. Very good for you, too. And there's no better place to do it than Baylor, right there on the river.
It's your back porch.
That's right. It's beautiful. I mean, there's a reason that it attracts so much across the country now. But so I was always into sports. We were always out and about doing something. We also Weston and I shared friends because we were close in age. So we were always getting into something pretty active.
Any part-time jobs or high school jobs?
Oh, goodness, yeah. Weston and I both, this is funny. I'm sure he might have talked about this too. Our cousin Jason, who was a lieutenant at the fire department in Chattanooga, he owned a little shop at Northgate Mall that was, it was called Nutso's, but it was a smoothie, ice cream, like candy little shop. Northgate's like a dead place at this point. And it was dying then. I mean, it was totally dying. But
I think I remember that place.
Nutso's, yeah. It moved a couple times, but yeah, it had all the little snacks like pretzels and ice cream. And so Weston and I both had jobs at Nutso's at different points in time. That was one of my high school jobs. I think I would just flirt with all the boys in the mall. And then, of course, like any good millennial, I worked at a tanning bed, which if I could go back and change a few things about my life, one of them is probably that my generation was like all about the tanning bed, which is really stupid. I know people still enjoy the tanning bed, but it's just I recently had a spot removed off my back, and I was telling my doctor, I was one of those tanning bed kids. And she said, so was I. So not only did I go to the tanning bed, Mike, I worked there. I was a real millennial in the tanning bed. So let's see, tanning bed, Nutso's. Those are my high school jobs, I think. Yeah, I wanted to work other places, but some of the places I wanted to work, my parents weren't real. At one point, I thought I was going to work at Cracker Barrel, and I don't think my parents let me do that. I think they nixed that.
So you go to Baylor for a year, you come back to CCS, it's time to graduate. You've already decided you want to be a lawyer.
Yep. So every single thing, I went to the University of Tennessee, Knoxville. I don't know if I would get in if I applied now. Luckily, I probably got in like by a hair, but it's very difficult now to get into the University of Tennessee. We've got kids all over town graduating from Macaulay and Baylor that can't get into UT. They're very selective at this point. But I went to UT. Weston was already there, and knew every single day of college that I was just working hard to go to law school. Every single day. And so I was very stressed in college, did not enjoy college, I wouldn't say. I mean, there were times, a big university is fun, but I really was just working hard to get to law school. So if I got a B+ in a class, it would like tear me up. I would be so upset about it because I needed my grades to be good enough to get into law school. And so that's...
So you were pretty focused as opposed to someone like me who saw that as 4 years to... discover.
Luckily, I did not treat it as it. Now, law school was way more fun. And it's almost like I put all my college fun off until law school because I no longer had to try to get into law school. But yeah, no, it was. I was in a sorority at UT. I had a good old time, but no, I really was very, very, very focused on. I need this GPA to get into the school that I want to go to, or the schools that I would want to go to. You
mentioned the high school teacher who had the influence and really got you thinking, I want to be a lawyer. But how much of your dad's profession, if any, played into pursuing law? Because a lot of times law sets you up for a career in politics.
Yeah, so it's strange. I would say not at all. My mom didn't go to college. My dad went to the University of North Carolina and then for a short time to University of Tennessee, but he never graduated. We have no lawyers in our family at all. Nothing. And I wouldn't say it's anything I really ever learned about with my dad being in Washington.
And his family's architects, right?
His family's architects. Yeah, his dad started the architectures off in his as the architects off in his family, because both of his brothers are architects. But no, I don't think anything, looking back, I'm thinking about it right now. I don't ever think it was any family influence that made me want to go to law school. I think that was just sort of a rogue. Everybody always says, oh, you argue all the time, you should go to law school. So everybody said that to me growing up, but it actually is a little bit true. Like, if you are opinionated and you are willing to have conflict that you enjoy, you might be a good lawyer. And that was me. That was sort of my own journey that I knew I was supposed to pursue.
I like the way you put that, conflict that you enjoy.
I enjoy conflict. I really do. I am a confrontational person. And it's not that I like to, be in bad, I don't want to be on bad terms with people, but no, I enjoy some.
Just speak the truth.
Yeah, that's right. I can be confrontational and I can keep it cool, but no, I enjoy that.
So you're at Tennessee, you're focused on law school, you get into UT Law.
Yeah, get into UT Law. Got in so quickly. I was applying to different law schools. I got into UT Law so quickly that it made a lot of sense for me to just go there. It was top 50 in the country still at the time. I don't know if it is now. And you get the in-state tuition, even with law school. And so it just made a whole lot of sense for me to stay in Knoxville and just knock it all out. So I went straight from UT undergrad to UT Law School. My parents said, hey, if you stay at UT, we'll pay for your law school. If you don't, we can't promise anything. And I said, I'm staying here. And so luckily I'm one of those kids that just by the grace of God did not have any student loans coming out of college or law school, because that is it's a bad way to start a career, especially these days.
You start in a hole.
You start in a hole and you might just never dig your way out of it. I mean, I have so many friends that in their 40s, are still making these student loan payments, and it's unfortunate. I don't know if our country does that right. I don't know if we do it the right way.
Well, and they've probably already paid back what they've borrowed, but the compounding interest is just killing them.
It's just a shady thing, for us to do that to college students that are trying to go be productive U.S. citizens. It's not right. And so I was lucky that I got to avoid that.
Well, altogether. It's not only not right for them, it's not right for all of us in our future.
That's right.
To have a group of people that are just that far.
That's right.
Under a pile of debt.
Hundreds of thousands. And they're all professional. Well, most of them are professional people. I have a friend that's a dentist, and she has hundreds of thousands of dollars. Well, she was doing her best. She wanted to go be a dentist. She's a professional, law-abiding, productive citizen, and she's saddled with all this debt. It's terrible.
When you're in law school, did you begin to pick an area of law that you wanted?
Yeah, I knew I was still there for the underdog. I was all about, what can I do to make a difference out there in the world? I was sort of naive in that, I thought that I could make a difference. I now know that that's not naive. You actually can make a difference. But I really was sort of wide-eyed and bushy-tailed about let's go change the world. And so I knew I wanted to be in criminal law. Probably a year into law school, I thought criminal law is what's calling my name, but also I wanted to be a trial attorney. I knew after a couple courses that I was supposed to be the one that was in court. I wanted to be in front of a jury or in front of the judge, which a lot of law doesn't allow you to do that. A lot of it's in an office. Maybe lots of lawyers never go to court, right? But much less argue a big case in front of a judge or a jury. And so if you're going to do that, the trial lawyers in town, and this might make people mad, but the trial lawyers in town are criminal attorneys, whether you're a prosecutor or defense attorney. We are the trial lawyers. You can try a case in civil court on, a car crash or whatever. We are the trial attorneys. So I will stand by that. But yeah, I knew halfway through law school that I was going to go the criminal route.
Were you taking any other classes that would help you in front of a jury?
Oh yeah. I focused on classes that would help me in front of a jury. There's one class called trial advocacy where you sort of try this whole case. That's what the semester is. You prepare to try a case, and you try a case in front of a mock jury in law school. And my professor was a man named Steve Oberman, and I ended up working for him after law school, during law school actually, because he and I, just like Bryant Black, Steve Oberman and I got very close, and he, I think, realized that I had some potential that maybe other students didn't have. So he sort of invested in me like Bryant Black had, and that's why I ended up working in his office while I was going to school. But yeah, he is a magnificent trial attorney in Knox County, and he practices defense, and I think I learned a lot from him in sort of a style. And trying a case is a lot about showmanship.
Oh yeah.
And that's one thing I knew that I was going to be good at. Whether I knew the law or not, we'd figure that out. But the showman side of it, I knew I could definitely do. So all of that attracted me to criminal law. And when I graduated, it was very clear that that was the track that I was going to take.
And when you graduate, you're in Knoxville for what, 6-7 years at this point?
7 years.
7 years.
Yeah.
Did you want to stay in Knoxville? Did you know you wanted to come back to Chattanooga? Did you think somewhere else?
This has always been home for me. And even though sometimes, I have, I think about what else could I have done? Where else could I have ended up? Could I have gone to a big city? Where would life have taken me? The thing is about my family is that we don't want to be away from each other. And that's still to this day why I would not leave this county, because my family is here. Mm-hmm. And so I don't want to leave my parents. I don't want to leave my brother and sister-in-law and my 4 nephews and my niece. I think it was very clear. I came home all the time in college and law school. We really are very much a family unit. We're very close. And so long as my family was here, I was going to be here, and that remains true to this day.
So when you get out, you know you're coming back to Chattanooga.
Mm-hmm.
You want to represent the underdog. Your first job is?
Public defender. I go to Steve Smith. He had just got elected. He's our elected public defender. He just got elected. And I said, I want to do this. I don't really know what I'm doing, but I want to do this. And he gave me a job. And the next day, basically, I was in court representing criminal defendants, not having a clue what I was doing, but figuring it out. And then I got good at it.
Talk a little bit about the public defender's role, because frankly, what most people see is what they see on crime dramas on television. Is it as much as someone getting arrested and accused? The public defender shows up, has never met this person before, has a tattered file, and says, "Okay."
Pretty much, it is. I mean, that's actually not far off. A lot of people, the criminal justice system, if you've not been a part of it, is sort of confusing. I remember my mom she was asking me, what does the public defender's office do? Even what does the DA's office do? It's hard. A lot of people don't know it. Public defenders in this county, represent every single indigent defendant, which is most of them. I think Steve Smith would say it's like 85% of defendants that they have represented at any given time. So I'm I've got very blonde hair at the time. I was 25 years old, skinny little thing right out of law school. And I would show up basically to meet these defendants at the jail that have been charged with everything from DUI to murder. And I would say, I'm your lawyer. And, I could see that they're like, are you sure you're my lawyer? Like, who are you? I had some interesting experiences based on my age and just the way that I looked. It was a unique job to have. But you basically all of a sudden are like, hey, this guy has robbed someone at gunpoint. What are you going to do about it? And you're hanging out with the guy that's robbed somebody at gunpoint, because you get close to some of your clients. I mean, you're their lawyer.
Did that make you work harder, being so young and having potential clients look at you and go, really? You're my lawyer?
Absolutely. I across the board, young females have an uphill battle. I also have always looked at it as an uphill battle that I have to prove myself. This goes back to the coattail conversation, is that I've always known people will say that I got places because of my dad. So I've been very targeted about being my own person and working my tail off myself. Like I don't ever want anything to be given to me. I will work hard. I enjoy working hard, actually, and I enjoy earning things myself. And so, yes, coming right out of law school, I had to prove myself. I had to prove that I was able to be a lawyer, and that I didn't need to rely on a last name. And also, as a young female that didn't look like a criminal defense attorney, that I was going to be a good one and really invest myself. And I did that. I loved it. That representing a criminal defendant against a government that can often overstep is very rewarding.
Is there a particular case that you had in one that you said, now this is why I became a lawyer?
As a defense attorney, it was a combination of seeing so many people, not that were innocent, because most of them are not outright innocent. They're not. However, if you want to understand their life stories and where they've come from and why they committed this crime, there's often some type of reason why they deserve leniency. And that's really what a lot of criminal defense attorneys are arguing for. Not that they didn't do it. Now, there are some that just outright didn't do it. And I remember a couple of those cases that really meant a lot to me, because I don't believe they did it. But then often it's just these people don't come from the background I come from. And so to invest in a criminal defendant and want to know sort of what their background is and what area of town they grew up in and why they ended up here in the jail 8 different times, you can often just be their voice when you can't look at everybody's life like it's Coty Wamp's life. They didn't grow up like that. They didn't have what I had. They were destined to be in this life because of their circumstances, and how can we help them get out of it? It's very rewarding. I would still to this day love being a public defender. It is a noble profession, and there is nothing more important in this country than a person's constitutional rights.
Well, and that's what I was just getting ready to mention. Everyone's got a constitutional right to defense, whether you're guilty or not.
100%. And all these people, I can't believe they are even trying this case. Of course they're guilty. Well, until it's your family member, and you want them to have their Fourth Amendment protections, and you want to make sure that their rights are not being violated. And if we don't have that, then this country's, we don't have anything. If we don't have those constitutional rights, then this is not the nation that it was founded on.
How long did you do the public defender?
3 years, and I represented a guy, and I tried a case. He never liked me. He always treated me bad, but I took his case to trial, and we won outright. We won. He couldn't believe it. I honestly couldn't believe it. Shouldn't have won, but we did. He walked out of the jail that night after he'd been in there for a long time, and he was supposed to go to prison, but he didn't because of me. And 2 weeks later, he stole an EPB bucket truck from the Walmart parking lot on gun barrel, and he ended up going to prison. So I had worked my butt off, and this was just the best example of recidivism that I had. And I was sort of getting fed up with recidivism. I had started telling my clients that we probably should build more prisons. And then this guy got in trouble right after I got him off the hook on an aggravated assault. And I was like, I need to switch sides. It's time for me to prosecute. Did you see that as I'm out here busting my tail? Of course, yes. You're working your butt off. They don't treat you well. A majority don't treat you well. Some of them do and are super grateful for your time and effort. I had also, at this point, sort of built a reputation for myself. So most people actually treated me very well because I tried hard and I was trying cases, which not a lot of the criminal bar is willing to try cases. But yeah, it's frustrating. You do all of that and then your client's back 2 weeks later. And that's across the board. That's what our public defenders are dealing with is they see the same people and they have to make these arguments and it gets very frustrating. So you saw that revolving door. It's such a revolving door, unfortunately. You decide to leave, get, lack of a better term, switch teams, get on the prosecutorial teams, zone. Yeah, that's a good way to say it. And where'd you go? So things had begun to look a little bit different in the Hamilton County DA's office. When the public defender got elected, there was also a new district attorney named Neil Pinkston that had got elected. And it was about after 3 years that things sort of seemed like they were going in a downhill direction. They had not started rolling down the hill yet, but they were going in that direction. And so I thought to myself, and honestly, I'm not really sure how this all worked out, but it worked out very well for me. I did not want to prosecute in Chattanooga, so I went up to prosecute in the 10th Judicial District, which is 4 counties northeast of here, but I was primarily in Bradley County and Polk County a little bit. But so I went to prosecute for a guy named Steve Crump in Bradley County. That had to be an advantage, at least the way I'm looking at it, that you were able to get out of where you were most well-known and really go get your prosecutorial experience in a place, your name's known. Yeah. But yeah, not the same thing. Yeah, it was a way to sort of hit the reset button in a different county without all the pressure, and then also not having to work with the assistant district attorneys that I had just worked with at the public defender's office. Yeah. It was honestly sort of a brilliant move that I didn't mean to do at the time because I was able to live here where I needed to live, and I knew I needed to live here. But I drove up to Cleveland every day, and I got my feet wet. It's also a smaller county, so there is very serious crime in Cleveland, but not as much of it. So it's easier to actually sort of get a grasp on the serious cases. As opposed to down here, which is just sort of chaotic all the time. When you went from defending the underdog to on the other side, was there an eye-opening moment or okay, this is different? Every single day is rewarding if you love your job as an assistant district attorney. Every single day you can go to court and make a difference. And that's not the way you feel as a defense attorney. Sure, you are a voice for the voiceless as a defense attorney. Often you are, protecting people's constitutional rights, but it's not rewarding in the same way that being a prosecutor is, especially when we talk about cases with victims. Because if you want to talk about being a voice for the voiceless, there is no greater way to do that than to stand up in front of a jury and represent someone who lost their lives at the hands of someone else. That is a voice for the voiceless. So the first case I tried as a prosecutor was a homicide. And of course, that was a big moment for me. And then the second case I tried, which was basically all by myself, was also a homicide. Those were big moments, but really it's the little moments in court when you're a prosecutor where you speak to a victim in the hallway of domestic violence and you listen to them and you figure out how you're going to help them and you go to bat for them. And that's just a random Tuesday. I mean, in our courts here, every prosecutor on a Tuesday is handling domestic violence cases. And those are considered, they don't get attention. There's so many of them. They're smaller, but they really make a difference when you're sitting in the hallway at court talking to the victim of this domestic violence. So all the little things, I very quickly knew that I was supposed to be a prosecutor, that my calling was to be a prosecutor. And
I first heard your passion. You spoke to Rotary 2 years ago, and I can't remember the case that you were talking about, but really that flipping from the voice of the voiceless pertains to the victims very much as those who are
That's
accused.
Right. They're both so rewarding, and it's why I understand why defense attorneys do what they do, and I understand how they love it. But then also on the flip side, it's just rewarding, and it's really a public service. It's why some people don't want to do it anymore, because it's public service, and you don't get paid what you get paid if you're a private defense attorney. But it's my office is serving this community in a way that no other office in this county is every single day.
So you did Bradley County for how long?
Bradley County for 3 years. So
3
I went
years?
public defender 3 years, Bradley County for 3 years. Tried more cases in the Bradley County office than any other prosecutor was trying, because I knew I was trying to get my feet wet. I was trying all the serious cases I could. I tried a child sex abuse case that really sort of changed my perspective even on prosecution after I had been doing it for a while. Tried a few homicides, lost a trial, which every good prosecutor needs to lose a trial. It was the silliest case I ever tried, and I lost it, which was a very good learning lesson. But yeah, so I was up there and I was watching from Bradley County as the Hamilton County District Attorney's Office seemed to be now rolling down the hill. When I left, they were at the top of the hill, peeking over it, and then it was rolling downhill. There was problems with the elected district attorney. It seemed like things were slightly just unorganized, and there was no focus. And I was watching. I was sort of paying attention to everything. And that's not to say I have a lot of assistant DAs from that office in my office that are fabulous prosecutors. My office is the best DA's office in the state. So it's not to speak poorly upon them. It's just that the leadership was lacking, and it was unorganized.
Well, leadership's important.
That's right.
So you decided to come back to Hamilton County, but obviously not with the district attorney's office. You go to the sheriff's office?
I knew I had to get back down here because I thought that there was a chance. We're talking, this was 2020. I thought at this point there is a 25% chance I'm going to run for DA. And so if I could have an opportunity to get back down to Hamilton County but stay in criminal law, because I'm not leaving criminal law, then I'm going to do that. And it was like this couple months into me thinking, is this is something I should do? And Sheriff Hammond called me and said, I need a lawyer in-house. Never had one before, but we need one in-house. That's very clear. Will you come interview? And if you believe in a higher power and sort of where I was at in my life at that time and what I cared about and where I was supposed to go, you would definitely say that was some kind of divine intervention there that Sheriff Hammond called me, but he did. I came down. I said, that's great. I interviewed, and I became the first general counsel for the Hamilton County Sheriff's Office, where I worked in-house on the ground floor of the criminal courthouse that my office is in today.
So he gives you a call, and I just want to illustrate the point that a lot of these signs come to people every day that they don't walk through the door.
So, Mac, I say this all the time, especially when I talk to young people, is like you have got to seize the opportunities. You also have to take risks, and I'm not a risk taker. I am a scaredy cat. I had to really step out of my box a couple of times when I took major risks, because there is no reward without that risk. And so I not only saw the open doors and got really lucky that I snuck through them, but I was willing to take a couple big risks.
Yeah.
And at an age where I thought it was appropriate to still take risks. You know, you might want to take less when you're 65, but when you're 32, take the risk.
Yeah, absolutely, because you got a lot of time to correct it if something doesn't work out the way you thought it was going to work out.
That's exactly right.
And you're with the sheriff's office for, I guess, 2 years before the election comes around?
Yeah, so Sheriff Hammond, I think pretty soon, he didn't know when he hired me. I don't know, maybe he did. I don't know what he would say. He might have known that I had some aspirations maybe. But I think in the first year that I was there, it became clear that these were my aspirations. And at this point, the district attorney's office had gotten to the bottom of the hill and was about to crash into the wall. So it had rolled down the hill, and it's getting worse and worse. And so it's looking more and more likely that our district attorney needs an opponent. And I remember the day I went to Sheriff Hammond and said, listen, I think I'm going to run for office. And he said, let's do it. And you've got a job here. Of course, I could never mix my job with the campaign, and I had to be very careful about my hours. But he said, you're welcome to stay here while you campaign. Just be careful with it. And then eventually Sheriff Hammond said, you've got my full support, and appeared in my first TV ad with me.
Well, and I don't think enough people know, and we talked about this when we started, or before we started, that your position is not a 4-year position. It's an 8-year position. So anyone in that position has plenty of time to do a lot of good, or maybe
train wreck.
Your words.
Yeah, so it is. It's the longest term in the country. There are some other states that have an 8-year term, but there is no term, as far as I'm aware, across the country that's longer than 8 years. So here, our judiciary is 8 years. That includes me and the judges and the public defender. The reason for that is because criminal justice is so slow. Now, I'm working very hard to make it faster in Hamilton County, but it's so slow. You don't want there to be a DA that can't even try some of the cases within that 4-year period of time.
Good point.
So I'm very grateful that it is 8 years. 8 years is a long time, but it goes by fast, and I'm very grateful that I'm only halfway through my first term right now, not running for office with everybody else that's running right now.
So although the county's on an election cycle, it does not pertain to you.
That's right. Right now, I tell everybody, Mike, that so long, for now and for the next few years, I'm not running for office, so I really can say whatever I want, which I often do, and it gets me in trouble, or it attracts people to me. I don't know, but I speak the truth, partially just because that's my personality, and also I have an 8-year term.
Yeah.
Right now,
it's a nice luxury.
Sure. Yeah. Right now, my goal is not to please everybody. It's just to be honest and speak what I think is the truth.
So you've had the conversation with Sheriff Hammond. You're deciding to run. What's the conversation? Because you're in a political family. What's the conversation with your dad and your mom, and then your brother, who had he already decided to run?
No, this was a wild time for our family, Mike. It could have been a Netflix documentary because it was just a really interesting. And then the way we both won in such different ways is very interesting. No, I decided a year and a half before the election I was running, and that's basically, I was campaigning for 18 months because I was running against an incumbent. I sort of had made the decision. And so I was out there early, and we weren't sure at that point in time if the county mayor was going to leave. Jim Coppinger was the county mayor. He had not made any announcement about retiring. It was still totally up in the air. I knew that Weston was interested. When Mayor Coppinger left, I knew he was going to be interested in running for county mayor, but, didn't know exactly how that would all align. But I was running for office. And then all of a sudden the rumblings were that Jim Coppinger was going to retire. And I think my whole family was sort of like sitting back watching like, oh no, is this about to happen? Coty's already in the race. I'm already raising money. Way later down the road, Jim Coppinger's talking about retiring. Weston's seriously talking about running. And I know my parents were thinking, please, Lord, don't let this happen at the same time. Don't let this happen at the same time. And then sure enough, it did happen at the same time. And it was pretty controversial in our family because that just complicates things. It complicated things for me. It complicated things for Weston. It just was, it seemed at the time like it was really bad timing for us to both be on the ballot. Looking back, it wasn't, and it was okay. And here we are. But it was controversial in our family and certainly caused some stress.
I bet, because there's only so much of particularly parents that you could spread around.
Sure. And my parents were just stressed all the time about both of us. Yeah. It was very sad, actually. I think we aged them because we really did just put them through the ringer. And my brother and I, who are constant allies and best friends, we couldn't really talk as much during that time because we were doing our own thing, and we wanted to make sure that our campaigns never crisscrossed.
Yeah.
We really had nothing to do with each other's race. I mean, I remember every now and then I would have to call him for some kind of advice, or vice versa, but it was very rare that we would cross paths. And it was a time in my life where I spoke to my brother the very least, is when we were both running for office at the same time.
When we had your dad on about a year ago, we talked about election night.
Oh.
So if you can, talk a little bit about election night from your perspective, because I know from his, tremendous pride.
Well, yeah, and now I just had a son 3 months ago, and so now
Congratulations.
thank you. I talked to my husband about this last night, actually, about how you don't realize what it's like to be a parent until you're a parent. And I know that sounds silly, but it just is so true. And so, like, all the pride that I know my parents have always had in my brother and I now means more to me, that I look at my son and I think about all the possibilities for my son. And so now I look back at things differently now that I have a child, because I know how proud my parents are of me. But yeah, my race had gotten to the point where the polls showed that I was the clear winner. I mean, that's just the only way to say it.
Mm-hmm. It wasn't in doubt.
The cart had rolled down the hill for the DA, and it had slammed into the wall. And there just wasn't a doubt. I did not know I was going to win with as big a margin as I did, but I knew that was. So we were all really just concerned about Weston at this point. And Weston is better. This is a weird thing to say, but it's true. He is better than me. He understands more. He's smarter than me. I know people would be like, no, he's not. I'm not saying that like being condescending. He just gets it, and he cares, and he loves Hamilton County, and he knew a lot about Hamilton County government when he was running for office. He knew a lot about economic development. He knew what he wanted to do with our school system, which he's done every single thing he said he was going to do. He just gets it. He's so good. And so in a lot of ways, I was way more concerned about how his election was going to play out. He had already lost twice when he ran for Congress. Those were hard. The second time was really hard to watch, because I know how much he cares, and I know how great he is, and how good he would have been for this county as the mayor. I was just really invested at that point in his race, and sick to my stomach all day, like we all were on election day, because we were so invested in what was going to happen with the mayor's race. I knew that he was going to be first or second. You could just feel it. Mm-hmm. But his, three candidates, all very good candidates. The polls had shown, we're dealing with it. It's a tight race. Again, I got ready knowing that I was going to be fine that night. I was super excited for it to be over. Good Lord, I was so excited for it to be over. I tried to, at one point, take my name off the ballot because I was so miserable. But we were just worried about him, and he was the underdog. He absolutely was. He was the underdog from day one.
But that had to be such a relief when the results were finally in.
We have a video. Of, first of all, my campaign manager he was down 6 points in the initial, I think it was the early voting numbers. He was down 6 points. My campaign manager said, Coty, he can't win. The numbers just show he can't win. And I'm sitting there thinking, how am I going to celebrate this night for me? And my parents are there, and I know my brother's at home with his family, and this is just awkward and awful. And he said he can't win. Well, slowly the numbers started changing. Then it was like he went up by, 100 votes, and he only won by, I think, 300 and something. So we're on the edge of our seat. Sure, it's only a county mayor's race and a DA's race, but for our family, this was like it had been 2 years of basically one of us campaigning, and everybody's just ready for it to be over with. And when they it was final tally, final results in, and he had won by 300 and something votes, was a moment for our family based on where we had all come from. Weston running for office twice, me running for office the same cycle, us having, arguments for 2 years and stress for 2 years, and our family dynamics were different. And finally, it was like all culminated into this one night where, thank God this is over. And what are we about to do for this county? Because this is about to be really cool.
Well, and you could breathe again.
Breathe. Oh gosh, I can't even tell you. I don't.
So you win. You come in. What are your priorities? What is it? As you're observing from everything you've done before that, when you were in District 10 mm-hmm. and observing what's going on, you come in and say, this is what I got to do first. And
yeah. I had so many big plans, and I was able to accomplish all of them. That's one thing I can sit here and say 3.5 years into my first term. I had all these big plans. And quite frankly, sometimes, Mike, when you're on the campaign trail and you're 32 years old and you're running against the incumbent district attorney, I knew what I needed to know. I had been in criminal law. I had been a prosecutor. I had been a public defender. But at the same time, some of the things that I wanted to do, I would cross my fingers behind my back and be like, I hope I can do that. I don't know. We'll see. But that's what I want to do. I don't know if that'll work like that. And the bottom line is I knew exactly what I was doing. I was ready for the job, more ready than I even knew I was. But my goal was to just totally refocus the office. We're going to focus back on violent crimes. We're going to focus on crimes with victims. We're going to, at that point in time, focus on opioids because that's our number one, still is our number one, killer in this county. And we're going to put victims first every single day. And we're going to restructure the DA's office so that we're best representing victims. I had all these big plans to prioritize, basically, to let's refocus the district attorney's office on public safety, not these petty crimes, petty cases. Let's focus on public safety. And day one, that's what we started to do. And I couldn't be happier with where we're at now.
There's a lot of talk nationally in Hamilton County, too, of the crime rate going down.
Mm-hmm.
What does the average Chattanoogan not really understand about crime in prosecuting crime?
Yeah. Per capita, Chattanooga continues to be a high per capita violent crime rate city. At different times, we've been in the top 5, top 10 across the nation. We're talking about we have had, in the last 10 years, we have had violent crime rates that equal to Detroit and Chicago. That's just the bottom line.
Is part of people not understanding that it's so compartmentalized in low-income areas.
Absolutely. It's I always say it's like a 4 by 4 mile radius where you're talking about most of our violent crime occurs. And so, if you're in Birchwood, you read it on the news, you see it on the news, and you might have some meth up there, but you don't exactly sort of understand what it looks like to live in Eastlake. Very different communities in one county. But also, Mike, it's most of the violent crime is gang affiliated. And this is something I battled when I ran for office. Certain people told me not to use the word gang. And I don't know when it got some type of political connotation. That's ridiculous. Gangs are gangs. That's what they're called in federal statutes. That's what they're called in state statutes. That's what they call themselves. Gang's a gang. And we have a major gang problem in Hamilton County. In the city of Chattanooga in particular, and a lot of our violent crime is gang affiliated. Most of our homicides are gang affiliated. They're targeted. You don't necessarily have to worry about being downtown with your family on a Sunday night and being shot, right? It's targeted crime. And then there's just always things about the justice system that the public's not going to get. I get so much flack for dismissing these cases or someone pleading to 6 years on a child molestation case, and the district attorney is never going to make even 50% of the people happy. First of all, we're not making any criminal defendant happy or their family. Like, we've already pissed off a large group of people just by prosecuting them, right? And then victims on major cases, I can only do as good as what an investigator's case file is. I can't take your case to trial without the evidence. I might know that a stepfather has been raping his stepdaughter, but I have to convince a jury of that with evidence that they are going to physically see and hear from a witness stand. And so there's parts of this system that are so frustrating because the community and the public is never going to actually understand how it works. It seems so simple based on a Chattanooga Times Free Press article. He was raping his stepdaughter. Well, let's think about how we're going to prove that, and we're never going to be able to, and how are we going to handle it? And so there's just so many complicated factors in criminal justice to then be also in a county where there's major crime problems and people are paying attention. People want to see these people go to jail and these people go to prison. It's always going to be difficult, and I can't make everybody happy, and I never, that's not my intention. My goal is not to make everybody happy. But it is always going to be a job, no matter who is in this role, where you're making 30% of the people that you're serving happy.
But doesn't that go back to the constitutional protections?
Right.
You may not like what the accused is accused of doing, but you've got to be able to prove it.
That's right.
Otherwise, you're just going to lock people up based on...
And justice is not a conviction. Sometimes you get justice because of a conviction, but justice is not always equal a conviction. Sometimes justice is dismissing a case. I have done that once where I gave a speech basically in court about justice not being a conviction. In this case, justice was a dismissal. That can happen. It can happen that sometimes this guy needs to walk out of the jail for justice to have been done. And so there's just, again, it's constitutional rights versus victims' rights versus evidentiary issues versus public safety, all these things that my ADAs have to consider every single day in court that, again, the public just, and it's okay that they don't understand it. We'll do that. And I'll take the brunt of the criticism any day of the week. That's totally fine. But it is complicated.
You're 4 years into an 8-year term. You got 4 left before you decide whether you run again or whatever's next. What do you want to do
in the next 4 years?
Yeah.
Well, so one thing that I'm really good at that I didn't know I was good at is managing an office. And I would put my office up against any DA's office in the state of Tennessee, whether they're bigger or smaller, because I have been very, very good at hiring. I have been patient. I have snatched up all of the best lawyers and prosecutors in this county and across the country, quite frankly, that I can possibly find. And so I say that when you ask that question, because one thing that I can brag on is an office that functions so well right now that it is right now, the way it's operating, it's a well-oiled machine. So in a lot of ways, what I want to do for the next 4 years is exactly what we're doing right now, because I have prioritized. We have focused on public safety. Again, we focus on victims. And so I think that I can brag on the fact that in 4 years, I've got to a place where I am really, really happy with the way that our justice system looks. I'm really happy with the way my ADAs treat people in court. I'm happy with our conviction rates. I'm happy with our trials. But I would say in the last couple of years, I've always cared about child sex abuse cases. I've always prioritized them, but more and more I am putting them at the top of my priority list. There's no offender that's worse than a child sex offender. There is no murderer that is worse than a child sex offender in my mind. And that's just the truth. I'll be on the record on saying that. Okay. One is a really, really egregious crime of homicide. The other is just a total sick, disgusting, your brain doesn't work right, the worst kind of predator on our streets. And so with that said, people would be surprised how many child sex offenders reside in this county. People would be surprised how many defendants are interested in sexualizing young children. And it's actually frightening when you look at the numbers and you're in these meetings and you hear about all these cases. So I would like to continue to sort of not just prioritize them, but really throw the hammer when we can. And oftentimes it's swinging for the fence because they're hard cases. They're hard cases to prove. They're hard cases to try. That's why the conviction rates are low. But I have a child sex abuse prosecutor that's willing to do it with me. And no matter what it takes, I'm going to pick more of them off the street than anybody else is going to.
And is that a problem? It's not a problem unique to Hamilton County, but the breadth of it. Are we along the national averages, or do you see a more predominance?
I think that it's probably, in my opinion, we have higher rates in Hamilton County than we do across the state. But I think, Mike, overall across the nation, the social media and access to images and videos, even internationally, you can access some child pornography that's created in Russia within 5 seconds on the internet. So I think anybody that was ever sort of a predator or had this in them, now it's just so easy to access this material and these images and then to act on it. And so in this day and age, maybe it's just easier to find these people, but it feels like there's a consistent increase. I think that the federal agencies would tell you that there's a consistent increase in these child cases. In fact, I actually have dedicated a prosecutor to the U.S. Attorney's Office and my office, and he only works in the U.S. Attorney's Office to work on these child exploitation cases because there's so many of them. There's too many for the feds to deal with, and there's too many for me to deal with, so we just do our best to divvy them up.
Couple more questions
Sure.
before we run out of time. When you were at CCS and Mr. Bryant, was it?
Mr. Bryant Black.
Bryant
Mr.
Black.
Black,
Sorry, Bryant Black. Gets you interested in law. Did you see yourself becoming a district attorney general?
I wouldn't have been surprised if you would have told me that this is where I'd be in my 30s, which is an interesting thing. That's not like bragging on myself at all. I hope it doesn't come across like that. I just, I have always wanted to be successful, and I've always had it in me to work hard, and my parents told me I could do whatever I wanted to do. And the combination of sort of some gut, some grit, and then people around you that support you and love you and say, hey, go try this. And if you fail, we're still going to be here and you can try something else. But I think a lot of who I am, and I love this now more than ever because I'm a new mom, a lot of who I am is because my parents allowed me to go do great things. Mm-hmm. And they said, no matter what, if you fall, if you fail, if you need to come home, if you need a place to stay, if you need us to come get you, even, as early as middle school, I had parents that say, anywhere you are, if you need us at any point in time, you call us, we'll be there. That gives kids courage as they go out into the world. Even if the parents don't realize that's what they're doing. If you support your children, no matter what, it gives them some support and courage that otherwise they might not have to go do great things. And so, I coupled hard work with a lot of passion about criminal justice, and then an upbringing that said, if you want to go do it, or Mike, this, and Weston would say the same thing. If I think I can do something better than somebody else, I'll try to do it. And in our case, I thought I could do a better job than the district attorney. And It took just a really risky, for 1 month, I guess, when I decided I was going to run, I had more guts than I'll ever have again in my life. But I thought I could do it better. And so with a parent, with a family that says, well, go try it, then you're willing to go try it.
Yeah, and you're well on your path, too.
Well, I don't know. I don't know where my path is going to take me. I know this is what I'm supposed to be doing, and this is where God has me for a reason.
Before I get to the last question,
sure.
Coty, I want to remind our listeners who makes my morning cup possible. And it's a big thank you to our presenting sponsors, EPB and Rockpoint Bank. EPB, get EPB fiber optics for the world's fastest community-wide internet. And Rockpoint Bank, your local banking partner, your business, your bank, your future. Now, this might seem a little bit of an unfair question, and it's this question I ask everyone. But you can bring a perspective to it. You're still very young, so that's where I say it might be a little bit unfair. What would you tell that 25-year-old Coty Wamp's important for a happy life?
I think it would have been I would have known this when I was 25. I just have a different perspective now. I didn't meet my husband until I was 34. Didn't know if I was ever going to have a child. Just had a child when I was at the end of my 36th year. Knew how valuable family was, but now I would tell my 25-year-old self to hang tight when it comes to your own family. Be patient, because what is going to make you the happiest is, first of all, before you have your own child, your 4 nephews and your niece that are coming to you, that have been my best buddies for a while now. But then be patient, because your greatest happiness is going to be in a husband that loves you, and then a little baby boy when you're 36 years old. Because that's the bottom line. And I have a different perspective even now as a boss. I've told my office this: nothing is more important than a family unit. This country is only as good as our family units are. And so I thought that I would feel this way, but I didn't know until I knew that little baby boy every single night going to bed is what makes me the happiest.
It is perspective changing.
It is. It really is.
I really appreciate you coming in and having this conversation today, and wish you the best of luck.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate it. I'd love to come back sometime.
Thanks for listening to My Morning Cup, a podcast by Costa Media Advisors. If you liked this episode, please share it with a friend. I release a new episode each week, so be sure to subscribe on Spotify, Apple, Google, or wherever you listen to podcasts.